Good day, everyone. My name is Dan of SharpTrade.com, and today we are continuing in our series regarding stock or equity fundamental metrics. Now, the first thing we need to say is what this series is not about, okay? To say that, let's just remember that whenever you look at a company, any company, whether it's public or private, it doesn't even have to be listed on a stock exchange. But if you look at any company, there are sort of three main segments of its accounting, how it's doing fundamentally, that you would need to know about. Okay? The income statement. And there are different pieces to the income statement. And it's very beneficial at least to learn the generalities of an income statement. And you can look at those pieces of an income statement tracked over time. An income statement is exactly what it sounds like. It's talking about its income. Okay? And you can see how the income of a company performs over time. And the different pieces of the income statement perform over time. That's one segment. There's also the balance sheet. Assets, liabilities. Very simple, right? Assets, liabilities. And again, you can watch that tracked over time, how the assets and the liabilities of any company, separate from the income statement, how the assets and the liabilities are performing over time. Are the assets increasing? Are they going down? Are the liabilities increasing? Are they going down? Is it staying the same? Are there any liabilities? Some companies, Apple didn't have any liabilities, right? So that's the second segment. And then there's the cash flow. And again, cash flows what it sounds like is actually what it's talking about. How is cash flowing? And cash can flow from different areas, from financing, investing, and just from the operations of the company itself, right? Just as we've said before, money coming into the till. So there are those three general areas. Income statement, balance sheet, and the cash flow statement. And they have different pieces. We will say that it's a good idea to learn the general principles of those three areas of the fundamental metrics or fundamental standpoint of a company. But we're not going to get into that in this series. Okay? So we're not going to be talking a lot about income statements or balance sheets. We may touch on them somewhat. There's a very specific reason for that. When you deal with the income statement, when you deal with the balance sheet, when you deal with the cash flow statement, anybody can learn the general principles behind those three categories and learn to read them pretty easily. Especially a lot of sites now will demonstrate that sort of information graphically. So you can learn that pretty easily. However, that deals with accounting. And Dan is no accountant. I am an investor. I am very interested in those sorts of statements. I've even learned enough to know where a lot of times a lot of funny business will go on, or that there can be funny business that goes on with financial statements, and where to look for some clues that that's happening. But that really, to really dive into all the nuts and bolts of it, you're dealing with accounting, which is a completely separate issue. Okay? So I've learned the generalities. I've learned some other stuff. You know, like I said, to find out, see, is anything weird going on? Is this something I don't want anywhere near? But I'm no accountant, and I'm not going to pretend to be an accountant. And really, this series is not really talking about those aspects. This series is going to be looking at things, well, like a very simple PE ratio, but we're going to dive into more things like that. We're talking about measurements of the company. When we say the fundamental metrics, we're talking about price book, okay? We're talking about PEG ratios. We're talking about dividend payout ratios. Yeah, there's also things like PEs, but there's other really neat tools that you can use, and there's quite a few of them. So in this series, as it progresses, we first need to say that. Know about the income statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement. Learn your way around them pretty well. Understand, I'm no accountant. A lot of investors, some investors are accountants, but some of us aren't. And you don't need to be an accountant. But this series really wants to dive into some of those terms you've heard and come up with small entries that explain them and illustrate what is a PEG ratio, what is that even measuring, How can you think about it in your own mind to get it straight? And describe each one of those metrics, you know, of the company, and explain that. And that's really what this series is all about as we continue in it. However, for now, that has been what it's always been. It's simply been our thoughts, not yours, for whatever the heck day it is. As always, stay safe, trade well, and remember that love doesn't cost a dime.